Greetings, I'm Diana or Lighthawk. I have been doing multi-dimensional readings for many years and quantum healing for 7 or more. I easily and deeply ground into the earth and then expand my energy outward to our sun and then the central sun and sometimes even to the great central sun in a quantum fashion. In addition, however, I find my meditations, healings, and practicing modalities even 10 times more inspirational and powerful when I spend time during the week in nature. This is especially true when I practice Celtic and core shamanic techniques. And today, we are going to concentrate and immerse, and I'm going to reveal more about the different aspects of the nature kingdom. Now, I did do a talk and a video and included a walk last fall. However, today we are particularly blessed to be enveloped in the summer abundance and landscapes of lots of bushes in full bloom and also some wildflowers around. Now, I am also entwined with the angelic kingdom, being guided by my guardian angels and guides and receiving revelations from a solar angel in regard to earth changes. Also, one of my key angels, besides Cassiel, is Shamiel, who oversees the balance and order of nature. Now, Shamiel promotes balance, clarity, compassion, empathy, harmony, serenity, and tolerance. He may be seen in a cloak of dark brown or hunter green, and take the form of a shaman, a Buddhist monk, or even the Green Man. He usually has brown wings of an eagle. Now, both angels and fairies, or nature spirits, bring so many blessings into our lives, and they are both light spirits. However, the fairies are more colorful, compact, and usually smaller in size, and have a lot of movement around them and you. They can help with earthly and planetary matters. But the angels are actually they usually appear more larger and stationary when transmitting messages and their light, and usually stay in one place whenever they communicate with you. Now, they particularly help with life purposes and goals. You know, we hear stories and read fables of elementals, fairies, and the like, but how often do we fully immerse ourselves peacefully and respectfully in their unseen realm? There were many ancient forests, especially across the world, where the simple folk lived, worked, and played, who would encounter these magical beings. Children and herb women of the forest would have a knack to find them and delight in their presence. There is a lot of history of the fairy kingdom, especially in Ireland and the British Isles. The folklore of the Tuatha De Danann is quite prevalent in Ireland especially. They were a mystical race and known to be the people of the goddess Danu. They were called the ever-living ones, gods of the earth. They ruled for about 169 years. And some say there was an extraterrestrial connection. They were very light-skinned, with mostly blonde or reddish hair and colorful robes. Now, they did rule for a long time, but eventually they were defeated by the Milesians. Now, they were the Milesians, a very violent warrior race. So then the Tuatha De Danann did remain in the area, but retreated underground and eventually became known as the Good People, or them. They were seen as mostly benevolent to the village folk and people, and they helped out with everyday matters and magic. But sometimes they were seen as tricksters, though. So anyone with an open mind and a grateful heart, no matter what country and area, can witness them. It helps if you are in a relaxed state and have done some inner work to know oneself more deeply. You know, there are still some enchanted forests in Europe and Canada, but there are also wide straths of forest in the northeast of this country, and the northwest, and the west. And the west is where we are at today, in the San Juan Forest. Now, the age of this forest and others can be determined by the old growth trees, which in some cases are huge. And the vitality of the forest here expresses itself in abundance of both softwood and hardwood, along with diverse plants and wildflowers, and also hanging moss, such as reindeer moss. So getting back to the basics, the devas are the general nature spirits of the land, plants, water, air, or fire. You see or feel their forms in a hill, a tree, a rock, or even the sky. Then, usually in a very distinctive form, are the elves, which some say the ancient elves were related to the Syrian race, the Syrian star race. They are nature's artists and very ethereal. They seem to have the same, even bodily shape as the Syrians. You know, slender, either white or blue skin. There are also stories of the elves being related to the Pleiadians. They both have freedoms that we do not, and have peaceful communities, for the most part, or societies. They have a feeling of unity for each other, and instead of strict governments, they have what are called elder councils. Now, the nymphs and sprites like to live near streams and among bushes, and they love to dance. Now, gnomes are more mischievous and are related to the leprechauns. They are shy, though, and may just peer through willows and large tree trunks, or even they could be in abandoned cottages and sheds, or large rock outcroppings on the forest edge. And, you know, sometimes they can even be in small towns. So, gnomes and fairies can also help protect your home garden or community gardens, farms, and areas and parks. They are attracted by certain flowers and plants and herbs, and the flowers could be like, say, bluebells, snowdrops, daffodils, and they also like mushrooms. Remember, though, it is important not to plant like toxic flowers in your garden in regard to the cats and dogs. Now, the nature kingdom and the fairies are also attracted to herbs such as rosemary, thyme, and lavender. And they love wind chimes, crystals, and shiny objects. So, and if you do have bird feeders out, if they're full of food and the bird baths are full of water, they will be delighted with that. Now, they do prefer places where pesticides are not used. And also, in a more garden type of setting, you can also welcome them with just, besides telling them that they are welcome, you can leave little notes or little messages on paint little messages on little rocks. Now, they will definitely help with increased creativity and imagination, no matter what the setting. If you leave offerings, whether in the garden or in the forest, you can offer small, like crystals, herbs, flowers, organic fruit, and also they love honey. I will be making an offering today in the forest on my walk. Now, the brownies are nimble, simple, and content. They usually appear in groups below large tree stumps or under floors and basements of dwellings. If they live in an inhabited house, they will often come out and clean and tidy. You may even notice some small items missing, though. Now, the dwarfs love caves and mines, but also abandoned cottages, and they love to take care of animals and, of course, crystals and rocks. If you see salamanders and lizards, they represent alchemy. They can be in any environment, not just the forest, but also the desert or the foothills. There are a lot of desert nature spirits. Now, I was in the desert a couple times throughout the year, and one time especially I was rattling and I saw and sensed and envisioned in the fifth dimension very white and medium-sized beings with large and blue eyes that wore like desert plant wreaths on their heads. And they were very peaceful and content. Now, going into the fifth dimension while in nature is very special because you can really see in rich colors and forms, along with spirit animals sometimes, and also receive special, direct, deep messages. Now, nature beings and the like also congregate around mushrooms in the forest or in the fields, especially fairy rings. Now, some say that the fairy rings are portals to other worlds and dimensions. Also, amongst the trees, sometimes appear guardians of the forest, I call them. They are usually about 6 feet tall, in white or blue robes, sometimes shimmering. Remember, as we ascend spiritually, we will have more contact with them, along with the fairies and angels. So today, I will go on a small journey on a trail in one of my favorite places. We will walk with a higher vision, a mixture of physical and spiritual eyes. But what is most important is that we do traverse lightly and in peace. For the nature beings and elementals will notice us if we come across as a dark and heavy form. So according to your degree of sensitivity at the time and how softly you walk will determine the outcome. And to get into a relaxed state, you can take several deep breaths and focus on the different colors and forms, the breeze or wind on the skin, the various sounds of, say, the wind, birds, insects, and also the flapping of leaves such as the aspen or birch, and then maybe an occasional stream or brook running by. So just don't have any large expectations, and in a flash of an eye you may see them and they could appear. Remember, they are more pure energy or vibration. So they may be appear physical, or part physical, or completely vibrating energy. Also, they can appear in a form, though, like as an animal or a bird. Now, they could be in front all of a sudden, or to the side. They might even be behind, and you might sense them. Or sometimes fairies will land on your shoulder. And I think I mentioned before, they also appear behind shrubs and trees. So the nature spirits even often flit along butterflies, around flowers. And the nymphs like to sit on rocks near streams. But remember, they may communicate for a bit, but not to linger too long in a certain spot, or you might outwelcome your visit. If you find that you are still not seeing and feeling them, you can sit on a stump or a log or a boulder and just reflect or meditate longer. Even do some toning. Now, more nature information can be found on my website, mountainspirithealing.org. And I have more videos on my channel with Conscious Awakening Network also. So we will go on one of my favorite trails today through a mystical forest and landscape. So, again, the fairy folk and the elves really center their life around trees, and they often peer around it, and some even have their homes, especially like brownies, either in like a hollow part of a tree or underneath or in a log or a stump too. And I've always had a strong connection to trees, their energy, their wisdom, and it's really good to even meditate near a tree. And depending on the tree, you can receive different messages. But meanwhile, you know, the folklore of the trees goes way back. The ancient Druids really had an affinity for trees, and they had their meetings often in oak groves. And besides that, they developed a certain alphabet that was related to Celtic cosmology. Now, this alphabet is also intertwined with the tree readings that I do, the tree oracle readings. And again, you can find more information on my website. So, depending on the type of tree, a lot of times will depend on the kind of messages that you can receive, whether you just stand near one or you do a meditation. Now, the oak is also a tree that's in Europe and in the Celtic region, but it's also prevalent in this country. Now, the oak is the king of most forests. And it really stands for sturdiness, strength, wisdom, learning, and endurance. Now, another tree, which sometimes, is considered a bush, is the willow. Now, the willow stands for femininity, fertility, and magic. And then also up in the higher altitudes, again, like here, we have the spruce. Now, the spruce is my favorite tree, and I really feel a lot of enlightenment whenever I'm near the spruce. And to me, it represents metaphysicalness and also elevated community. And then also the fir. Now, the fir is very prevalent in the forest in this area and also in the north. And besides being a beautiful tree and having wonderful energy and vibration, it has that certain aroma that you just wish you could bottle it, right? It just smells so good, and it's very uplifting, and it's good for the soul. Now, besides the trees in a forest, and then there's also quite a bit of different kinds of trees, like in the foothills. Now, the one is the pine tree, which I'm near quite a bit. And the pine tree, to me, represents, again, stability. And also, if I meditate near a pine, I usually receive more messages in regard to the local community and so on, and also very direct, practical messages. Now, also the cottonwood, which you often find cottonwoods like along a stream, and they are very good to just hang out. They usually have quite a bit of large branches and then leaves in the summer, and to me they represent, again, community, and you can receive messages in regard to in regard to the community area, and also the home life. So on our walk today, we are going to be, again, passing by many different kinds of trees. And one thing I wanted to mention too is, with a meditation, besides actually being physically near a tree to meditate, you can even meditate at home, and there is a certain procedure, certain practice that you can do where you envision yourself as the tree in regard to the roots really going down deep into the floor or the ground, depending on where you're at. And your body is the trunk, and then your branches will just outreach to different dimensions and the universe, and really represent, again, growth and expansion. So again, fairy folk and nature spirits love offerings. Now, the offering can be done at home, in the garden, or if you're doing a hike on a mountain, you can make a mountain offering to the nature spirits and elementals. Now, here we're in the forest, continuing on our day, and I'm going to make a little offering on this stump. Just really stands out, and I like the shape of it and so on, but it would be a good place to place some items. So what I did bring, again, it should be mostly all natural, again, because we're going to be leaving it here. So I have some rose hips here, and colorful is always good too. So here's some rose hips, and I could put it here or on top, but I think for now I will put them down below here. pink and red roses and white flowers. And I also have some granola here, sugar-free, and some nuts. And again, they do like crystals, so I brought some little rocks and crystals. So I'm going to put this one right here, and then this one here, right in front. And another thing you can do is leave like natural made jewelry, if it's like made out of little wood pieces or so on. And I have something from the ocean here, so bringing in some of that ocean spirit energy. Some little crab leg here, that right there. And again, the whole idea is to really commune with the nature spirits, and also that everything is sacred. So we just practice a sacred act today, and I think it's very colorful, and I think they will enjoy it. Now, one technique that you can do at home, but it's just, again, just so wonderful to do out in nature in the forest, is to journey. Now, I like to, whenever I'm out immersed in the forest, I especially like to journey to the lower world. And the lower world, there's a lower, middle, upper, or in Celtic lore, it's just all called the other world. Now, whenever you do journey to the lower world, often you can really receive profound messages in regard to anything, maybe any heavy emotions you may be having, or just something that is really existing a lot in the material world that you would like to get more insight on and take care of. So again, it's just good to be in a relaxed state. And what I often do is I envision like there's a hollow in that stump over there. And I envision myself going into that little hole in the stump, opening, and then going down below the ground and the earth, and then continuing to go lower and lower. And you can do the same like if you're in a rock outcropping or like a little cave. It's a really good technique to do then. And so I'm going to again envision myself going down into the earth, and just, you know, sometimes there's like a chute. It seems like a mud chute to slide down, or sometimes like a ladder will appear. And whatever comes about, you don't want to really control this too much. You want to just let things flow. And one thing that people do to entrain their mind to actually go into a different state is they use either a rattle, which I have today, or a drum. Yes, and a drum is very good for this too. So today I'm going to use a rattle, and there's a certain kind of beat that is used that really entrains the mind to delve deep into the subconscious, and just whatever comes up. It could be an animal that you see, it could be a being, or it could be a spirit guide. Sometimes I see like a salamander or like a toad, and it's just very remarkable, really, what comes up, and you just want to let it flow. But anyway, that beat is And you just do that, and you can take as long as you like. It could be just a minute, it could be longer. And then just try to remember, though, what you do see or what you do feel whenever you're in the other world, the lower realms. And whenever you're ready, after you do the journey and you're ready to come back up, again, you can either climb back up that ladder you may see, or that like chute, or just there could be like a little path and come up. And then, of course, it's always good to journal afterwards. So again, the beat is so. And I hope we have many more remarkable journeys together.